Okay, this is now hand and wrist anatomy review part 2. I'm sorry I didn't kind of stop at the most convenient time, but I did want to make sure that I got through all the slides within 2 sessions. So now we have our flexor digitorum profundus. We talked about the digitorum superficialis, which is the more superficial muscle going to all 4 fingers. Now the digitorum profundus. This starts at the upper 3/4 of the ulna and inserts on the distal phalanx of the 4 fingers. It does flexion of all the joints, including the DIP, PIP, MCP, and is innervated by the median nerve. The flexor digiti minimi. As you'll know, digiti minimis are some of my favorite muscles. Okay, that's this little guy right in here. So it originates on the hamate and flexor retinaculum, inserts on the proximal phalanx of just the 5th digit. So it does flexion of that MCP and CMC of the 5th digit, and it is innervated by the ulnar nerve. Now going to extensors, we have the extensor digitorum, and this also goes to all the fingers. It starts on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, inserts on the base of the distal phalanx of all 4 fingers. It extends all 3 joints of the fingers. I should have that on here though. It should be DIP, PIP, and CMC, and is innervated by the radial nerve. The extensor, another extensor is the extensor indicis, which just controls the index finger, or the first finger, also known as the 2nd digit. So it originates just kind of on the distal ulna here, inserts on the base of the distal phalanx of this first finger, extends all 3 joints, the DIP, PIP, and MCP, and is innervated by the radial nerve. This one is really kind of fun to find on a cadaver because you could just lift their forefinger there, and it's kind of fun. Okay, and now extensors. Extensor digiti minimi is going to extend that just the little finger. So it originates on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, inserts on the distal phalanx of that fifth digit, that should say, and extends all 3 joints of the 5th digit. And it is innervated by the radial nerve. Finger abduction and opposition. I just put these on the same page mainly because they're still all on the same picture. So the abductor digiti minimi is this darker one right here, and it originates on the pisiform and tendon of the flexor carpi ulnaris, and then inserts on the proximal phalanx of the 5th finger. So it's going to abduct that 5th digit at the MCP joint. It is innervated by the ulnar nerve. The opponens digiti minimi is a little bit lateral to that, okay, which originates on the hamate and also on the flexor retinaculum, inserts on the 5th metacarpal, and it does opposition of that 5th digit, so it's going to bring it across the palm to the thumb, and that's innervated by the ulnar nerve. The intrinsic muscles of the hands, this is what I learned as the intrinsics, but it's you'll see later that I will kind of review all of the intrinsics to include some of the other muscles we've already talked about. The dorsal interossei, so they originate on adjacent metacarpals, so that's between the metacarpals, and they'll insert on the base of the proximal phalanx of those respective metacarpals. They do abduction at the metacarpal phalangeal joint and are innervated by the ulnar nerve. Now on the flip side, on the palmar side, you have interossei as well between the 2nd, 4th, and 5th metacarpals, and also insert on the base of the respective proximal phalanx, but they do a deduction of the MCP joint and are also innervated by the ulnar nerve. And I'll show you in a second what these pictures look like. The lumbricals, we call this the roof making muscles. Your book called it something else. Oh, tabletop position. So this is a position of flexion of the MCPs, but extension of the PIP and the DIP joints. The lumbricals originate on the tendon of the flexor digitorum profundus. They insert on the extensor digitorum. Their innervation is going to be different. Between the first and second lumbricals, they're innervated by the median nerve, but the third and the fourth lumbricals are innervated by the ulnar nerve. And here's a picture of those intrinsic muscles. Here's your dorsal interossei, right, that are between the metacarpals. Insert on that proximal phalanx. Your palmar interossei between the second, fourth, and fifth. That adduct. And then the lumbricals, which form the little rooftop from the tendons of the flexor digitorum profundus, and they come up here. Okay, so just to kind of put this together with the intrinsics, your thenar eminence, so that, you know, the big bulky one on the thumb side, is consists of the flexor pollicis brevis, right here, the abductor pollicis brevis, and the opponens pollicis. Okay, here. Those are two different muscles right there, although it's hard to tell. In the deep palm, which are intrinsics, but they're not part of either eminence, is your adductor pollicis here, your interossei, and then your lumbricals. And then the hypothenar eminence is on the little finger side with your flexor digiti minimi, your abductor digiti minimi, and your opponens digiti minimi. I love the digiti minimis. Okay, and I think that is it. So long.